another edition of the Horned Frog Blitz podcast. Podcast number 6, I believe. I'm Jeremy Clark, joined, as always, by my friend, Jeremiah Glenn. Jeremiah, how's things going for you?
It's going pretty good. Feeling a lot better this week after a 50-7 win as we were the week before.
I think a lot of people are feeling a lot better these days. We're going to talk about the dismantling TCU had over Texas last weekend, 50-7. We're going to talk the upcoming game against Kansas State. Go around the Big 12 a little bit. I think I'm beating you on our predictions right now by a couple games, but there's always a chance to come back on that. And we're going to get into some recruiting, obviously. Some news broke down today with Cameron Williams. We'll discuss that at length, discuss a couple guys that are high on TCU's list and guys that were in attendance at the game this past Saturday. But first things first, man, let's get into this 50-7 win over Texas. I think a lot of people knew that TCU would win that game. I think there was a lot of questions going into it as far as, how's the defense going to react to Texas playing better on offense. Obviously, TCU gave up a lot of yards and points to Texas Tech the week prior, but I think we saw the best defensive effort of the season so far. Maybe the most complete game. They didn't score the most points, but as far as offense, defense, special teams, might have been the most complete game that we've seen from the Frogs this year.
I think so, and I think part of it may be that Texas isn't really the vertical threat that some of the other schools that they've played are. But I think what I saw that I was most impressed with was it seems like the young guys are running in the right direction now. They're not really thinking, they're just reacting and they're making plays. There was tackles for loss, a lot of plays right at the line of scrimmage. The young safeties really look comfortable. I was real impressed with Ridwan Issahaku. I thought he stepped in and did a great job. Everybody's been wanting to see what he brings to the table. You see it. He brings athleticism. You'll get a better chance to see against more vertical passing teams if he can do any better on the deep ball. Right. But I like what I saw in run coming up in run coverage, and I just really like the aggressiveness of the defense. They pinned their ears back and they attacked Texas the whole day.
One thing that I was mentioning last week in this game is that for some reason or another, the 4-2-5 always gives a freshman quarterback some tremendous difficulties, whether it's the way Coach P disguises his coverages, the way he blitzes. And he said on Wednesday that he didn't really blitz a lot. He just got a better rush from his defensive line.
They were getting it done with 4 guys.
Yeah, and it just made it look like he was getting more pressure. But Hurt only threw for, not even 50 yards, 8 of 20 passing. He rushed for more yards, and basically that was their offense. Their offense was, let's get in a hole and see what Gerard can do scrambling out of some pressure. And even if you rewatch the telecast, Chris Spielman's up there saying when your offense is basically your quarterback scrambling, that is going to get you in some trouble, and that's what it did. But Texas is in a world of hurt, man. That program, it was surprising to see the Longhorn on the side of their helmet on Saturday because that's not traditional Texas football, and you got to start to wonder how long of the leash is Charlie Strong on. You got to think they're probably not going to have too much success at playing Oklahoma this Saturday. They've got a tough road ahead. They're not going to beat Baylor. They're probably not going to beat West Virginia. They're not going to beat Texas Tech. They have a chance to go 3-9, maybe even 2-10 this season. And I don't know if that's going to keep Charlie Strong around. He's 7-11 right now as their coach, and you got to think the collar's getting kind of tight.
I think it's unfortunate because I think Charlie Strong is a great coach. I think it's only fair to let a guy get 3 or 4 full recruiting cycles of his own guys to see what he can do. But I also understand that it's Texas and there's a lot of pressure in that position. And he knew that when he took that job. And, he is under a microscope there. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing for me coming out of that game, though, was how thoroughly TCU beat Texas. And it was 50-7. But if you look, they only scored 13 points in the second half, TCU that is. And they could have easily put 70 points on the board or right. more in that game, but they didn't do it.
Trevon only played 3 quarters in that game.
Exactly. So. And you look back and see it starts making you question how good is the rest of the Big 12. You saw them play a really close game with Oklahoma State, who's a top 25 team. As for now they are, and that was a 3-point game. And then you saw them lose to a top 25 Cal team by 1 point on a missed extra point. So you're thinking coming in they're going to be much more competitive than they were. But the fact is, they had no answer for TCU.
No.
On offense or defense, they could not solve that riddle. And that makes me really start to wonder how good is Oklahoma State. How good are some of the other teams in the Big 12? I don't know, but I think TCU's starting to come together at the right time.
I think what we saw on Saturday it's kind of somewhere in between. TCU's defense obviously did much better than what we saw against Texas Tech. They made Hurd look pretty bad in some cases, but I think it's somewhere in between. I think obviously you had the chance to play against a young quarterback, a young offense. He doesn't have very many receivers to throw to. Deshae Johnson gets hurt by that massive hit Kendrick
What a
put
hit
on
by
him
Kendrick. He was
early in
laying the
game.
lumber that game.
Yeah, I mean,
multiple big hits.
He was all over the place, but they're just in disarray down there in Austin right now. And you mentioned Charlie Strong getting his own guys in there, but heck, one of his own guys was tweeting at halftime. And I don't want to make it more of a story than what it already is.
That's a huge story. I'm sorry.
I mean that's something. I mean, for kids to be checking their. Could you imagine if you come out of halftime and someone from TCU's roster's been tweeting? I mean, Gary Patterson would not let that kid play the next week.
I just remember that story came down, and I was just blown away that somebody has the audacity, knowing you're struggling, you're getting your tail whipped on the road, to go in and tweet, not just any tweet, but how about retweeting an A&M fan?
I don't think it was anything Chris tweeted. It was just the retweet from an A&M fan.
Wanting him to transfer. And what does that say? Is it your head and heart's not with that team? Now, I know he came out with an apology,
yeah.
but I'm not 100% certain that came from Chris Boyd.
But there's just Twitter wars going on all over the place down there. But, like I said, I was very impressed. The things that I liked about this game, you had a chance to see KaVontae Turpin some more. KaVontae just had a stellar game, and I just.
What else do you say about that guy?
It's unbelievable how TCU was able to get him so late in the process, because I know teams, Tulane especially, has got to be just. I mean, can you imagine what the kid would be doing at Tulane right now? But he's doing the same thing for number 2 team in the country, and another classic find. I mean, they were just looking for him to give them a boost on special teams, being
he's forced his way into a major contributor.
And I know a lot of concerns early in the year was who was gonna fill the void Deontay Gray's leaving.
I think you got your answer.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the senior leader Deontay is. He's not as experienced, but he's certainly making Deontay Gray plays. I mean, there's plays that little 49-yard pass he caught the other day when he was on that wheel route and just juked the heck out of PJ Locke. And then on the other dump route, I mean, I don't think you're going to see too many teams when TCU lines up 5 wide moving forward. That I don't think you're going to see any teams lining up outside of KaVontae. They're not going to give him the slant anymore, because he scored twice on that play now just by using his pure speed. But Josh goes out and has another big day. And I talked to Coach P about this on Wednesday too. Sure, they're missing Kobe Listenby, but they're not. They're still going out there scoring 50 points and 55 points a game without having the fastest player in college football. And Coach P actually said we're actually moving the chains a little bit better, because you're not giving up 2 deep passes a game, because when they have Kobe out there, they're throwing it up. I mean, they're going to throw, they're going to test him vertically. But he said him not being out there, not that he wouldn't want him back, but him not being out there, it's helping them move the chains a little bit, because they don't have that speed. But now they got guys that will run the shorter routes, catch the passes, and move the chains for them on first down.
Well, I think what you're seeing, it's a testament to the actual depth that TCU has on the offensive side of the ball. Heck, on the defensive side of the ball too, with all the injuries, to be able to get where they are right now. But this is. You've seen it over the last few years, maybe not in the overall final recruiting rankings every year, but if you look at the caliber of player TCU's pulling in every single class now, every guy that's on this roster now had 5, 6, 7, 10 other Power 5 conference offers.
Yeah.
And so you don't think of it at the time, but over time that you start to build that depth. And if you got one guy that's a star in the system, that's great. But you look at the way TCU coaches up their players, and the young guys are catching on quickly, and they're talented players, and they're being able to take it from the coaching and put it and apply it to the field right away. And I think what you're seeing, the product on the field right now is it doesn't matter if you're a freshman or you're a senior. If you get that coaching and you have some skills, then you see what TCU can do with that right now.
And talk about the special teams for Texas. I mean, another mishap they had early in the game, and that just opened the floodgates. I mean, from that point on, it was because Texas actually started off good. They forced a 3 and out. You thought Malik Jefferson was playing good. Peter Jenkins was obviously playing good. And they had that first series, it looked like they had a lot of momentum on their side, and then it only takes one offensive series, then a high snap, and the next thing you know, it's 16-0, then 23-0, 30-0, 30-0 is the highest point total in a quarter Texas has given up since they played Houston in the late '80s when Mr. Andre Ware was back there running the run and shoot for them. But 37-0 at halftime, and what was pretty funny, the offense did go stagnant there for the midway through the second quarter where they had 2 consecutive 3-and-outs, but with just over a minute left to go in the first half, we're all thinking that here we are discussing in the press box, are they going to run the ball, run the clock out, or are they going to try to score? And it just goes to show the difference in mentality, because 4 years ago, everyone knows this. I'm not telling anyone anything they didn't already know. Patterson's sitting on that ball. He's running, letting the clock run out. Now, he's letting his offense do the thing because that's what he knows he has to do. And I like seeing that. I like seeing the aggressiveness from him. And I'm sure a lot of TCU fans love to see that same thing, because I know everyone in that stadium wanted to see another touchdown before halftime. And I'm sure they wanted to see 70 points on the scoreboard, because how great would that look against the vaunted Texas Longhorns? But they could have, like you said earlier, they did have the potential to score 70 points. You had Jerison miss that wide open pass, and he's kind of like, did that thing just hit me in the chest? He was shocked. It was such a good pass, and you saw Trevon just kind of like, he wanted his 6 touchdown passes. But they could have kept scoring if they kept running their offense. If Boykin's out there in the fourth quarter throwing the ball around, they could have named their score, and they probably would have scored it.
Sure. I mean, you don't want to be petty, but it's kind of funny, after scoring 30 in the first quarter, you didn't want to see them get shut out in the second quarter, so it was nice to see them drive down and get another score. And then they come out and score first drive of the second half, and it's 44-0 before you know what's going on. But, I mean, it really was like watching – if you didn't know, if Texas didn't have the Longhorn on the side of their helmet, you would think that was just a really bad, lower-level – Power 5 team.
Yeah.
Or maybe not even a Power 5 team. You might have talked me in that being like a Tulane or somebody like that. I'm sorry. I could not believe the lack of playmakers that Texas has on their offense, and I also couldn't believe the lack of plays they couldn't make a play on defense. And I understand, you kept hearing that from the commentators, they're young, they're freshmen. Well,
TCU's young too.
TCU's freshmen too, but their guys are making plays.
TCU's got a true freshman linebacker too.
Absolutely. But TCU's young players are making plays, and Texas' young players look completely lost.
They do.
Anybody that was covering Josh Doctson on Saturday was an automatic catch. I mean, there was not a guy on that field that could cover him.
Well, they put Holton Hill on him, and Holton's a big kid. He's 6'2".
Yep.
That catch Josh had
was unreal.
And the thing that was the most telling play of that game, and how poorly coached Texas is right now, was the throwback to Nixon, where he threw it to Josh, and Josh is literally walking into the end zone. They were nowhere near that play. And someone said, the Texas fans, TCU's got to resort to trick plays to score. They could have ran.
That's just part of their offense.
They could have said, Texas, we're running left, come stop us, and they would have gained 6-7 yards. That's the way the offense was clicking that day.
Aaron Green could have ran for 200 yards in that game. I mean, they literally could have done anything they wanted to do on that field. I mean, it was their 4th straight game of 600 yards of offense, 4th straight game of 50 points or more. Mm-hmm. This offense is humming along, and like I said, even in my 25 thoughts afterwards, they haven't even reached their full potential yet.
Yeah.
And that's a scary thought. The only other team that's out there that's more impressive on offense right now is Baylor.
Yeah.
And they're just doing
What's that say, though, about, the teams TCU's played so far? They've played SMU, who's got a good offense. Texas Tech has a good offense. I think it's going to help them tremendously as they move forward down the season to when they get to games like Oklahoma and Baylor, that last 2-game stretch. Yeah. I think they're going to be ready for it, because they have played guys like Matt Davis and Patrick Mahomes. Sure. And Gerard Hurd. I think they're going to be Baylor. Between Baylor and TCU, I don't see a team on their schedule that can beat either one of those teams. I think it's probably going to be the biggest game in Amon Carter Stadium, that Black Friday. But we'll get ahead of ourselves too much if we start thinking about that. But as always, I want to the positives we've already been over, but the negative I can't come up with many for this game. I mean, how do you come up with a negative in 50-7? But I have one thing that does kind of irk me right now, and it irks Coach Patterson. Poor tackling. Poor tackling. They missed a ton of tackles. Probably could have had a shutout if they would have wrapped up a little bit better. The third team defense did give up the touchdown. You wanted to see the shutout, but heck, you got to get those guys out there to play. And I'd like to see Travorce Johnson get a little bit more carries, but it looked like he was trying to score.
He was running with a purpose.
Yeah.
I think he was ticked off at not getting carries in the last couple of games, which, maybe it was a message to him to when you get the ball, you run like a man. You're 230 pounds, run like it, and he did. He looked like a runaway. He looked like a runaway
I think
freight
Coach
train.
Patterson learned his lesson last year against Texas Tech when Travorce was in there running over those Red Raiders and scoring the last touchdown. I don't think he wanted to score another touchdown against Texas, but obviously a good win. You like to see that win against a good program because a lot of people, for whatever reason, were suspecting that TCU was going to get upset in this game. We thought it would be a closer game. You and I both thought it would be a game, but not a two. We even thought 3 or 4 touchdown game.
I predicted 49-28. I was really surprised Texas couldn't move the ball at all.
I wasn't as surprised, but just because I know the way the 4-2-5 can wreak havoc to freshman quarterbacks, and I knew that Hurd was going to have to use his legs to make plays, and they did a fantastic job of containing him.
Well, that was my first time to see him in person, and he's an outstanding athlete, but he has a lot of work to do throwing the ball. Yeah. So, unlike Matt Davis, when he broke containment, he really couldn't do anything with it down the field with the pass. He had multiple chances that he overshot receivers and really wasn't accurate at all with the ball. He was very one-dimensional. And I think TCU was able to see that early, and they really were. It took away half of their game plan.
When your offense revolves around a scrambling quarterback, you're going to be in trouble.
Yep.
But speaking of quarterbacks, we're going to move ahead to this week. Does Kansas State even have a quarterback on their roster right now?
I think they're bringing the mascot in to take a couple of snaps.
They need to, man.
But I know, seriously, they had Cody Cook, their emergency fifth-string quarterback, who's a receiver, taking snaps last week. There's a lot of injuries this year across college football. But
Carl Joseph lost for the year.
Probably the best safety in the Big 12, or one of the hardest hitters for sure. He's gone for the year. But you just look
huge
across,
loss for them.
It's very big. That's a very big loss. But yeah, Kansas State's been hit as hard as anybody by graduation and injuries. So, I see the line on this game is 9 right now.
That's kind of unusual.
Yeah, it makes me wonder what Vegas knows, but I just don't.
I promise you, there's no secret injuries.
Even if Jake Hubener does start, which they're saying he's probably going to start for Kansas State, he's a good running quarterback. He's mobile, but I don't see him doing many things that would really keep Kansas State in the game that much. The way they scored, 34 against Oklahoma State, I don't think Kansas State scores 34 on TCU. That's just
no.
I just don't think that happens. And I don't see how Kansas State holds TCU under 40. So,
what makes me positive about this game? There's no Tyler Lockett. You don't have a Tyler Lockett on
There's
your
no
offense.
Lockett, period. Yeah, that's
yeah, they're in trouble, but it's kind of like you mentioned, we don't know how good Oklahoma State is because they barely beat Texas. They give up 34 points to Kansas State. We don't really know how good Kansas State. They're kind of a quiet 3-1. They're always quiet. You don't know what kind of team you have with Kansas State till late in the year, and then all of a sudden you look up, they're 8-0 or 7-1. They're ranked top 15. You don't really know what kind of team they have because a few weeks ago we're sitting up there watching them play Louisiana Tech, and that's a game they could have easily lost. And so many questions on offense, so many questions on defense. You're right, they're very young. TCU has a very experienced veteran team going up to Manhattan this time, unlike 2 years ago when they barely lost basically off a couple bad plays.
Yeah.
But, I don't see this being a 9-point game. I see TCU carrying the momentum they gained from beating Texas the way they did and going up and getting the job done at Kansas State as well.
I could see this being a 45-17 or 45-21 type game. One thing about Kansas State, regardless of the talent level, regardless how many seniors they have, as long as Coach Snyder's there, they are going to bring a physical game to you. They're going to come, they're going to hit you in the mouth, and that's just the way they're going to play. The problem with Kansas State is they don't recruit the level of athlete to keep up with an offense like TCU's.
Yeah.
They just don't. And it's I like Coach Snyder a lot, and I love what he's done with Kansas State. I have a lot of respect for that
He's
program.
stuck in his ways. He's only coach that has a team that's not running the pass-heavy offense and doing crazy gimmick things on offense.
They just don't get the athletes, I don't think, to compete, and especially against the high-octane offenses like Baylor and TCU throw at them. So I don't see TCU having too much trouble this weekend. It's going to be my first time to go to Kansas State. I'm excited to see that stadium. I love going to new stadiums that I've never been to, so this should be a fun one. It looks like they've done a lot of nice upgrades to the stadium, so should be a great crowd. Hopefully they're into it, and I love night games.
That's one thing that Coach Patterson was saying on Wednesday is that it's a tough environment to play in. The home field advantage does give you an extra boost. We obviously saw that with Texas Tech and Minnesota. But like I said earlier, this is a veteran team going up to Kansas State. This is a team loaded with seniors on offense, and arguably one of the top offenses in the country when you have a guy like Boykin and Dotson and Aaron Green. Anytime you have those guys that are healthy, you're going to have a chance to go up there and score points. And where I see Kansas State struggling the most is on defense.
Yeah.
Period. Cody Cook is a good quarterback. I like his mobility. But TCU just has done a good job. If you look at the second half, I know Mahomes was kind of hobbled with his knee, but overall they did a pretty good job containing him in the second half of the Tech game, and obviously did a pretty good job containing Gerard Hurd. And I'll tell you right now, no disrespect to Kansas State, but I don't think they have the amount of talent that a Texas Tech or an SMU or a Texas has at receiver. Like I said, they don't have Tyler Lockett anymore. They have Kyle Klein. They got some guys like Andre Davis, guys that can move the chains a little bit. They got Gronk's little brother, Gronkowski. So you might
watch for the tight end.
Yeah, watch, or the fullback or whatever. But I mean, Kansas State, like you said, they're always going to play tough. They play assignment football. You don't catch them making bad reads. But they're as far as talent. You ever hear the saying, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard? That's kind of Kansas State. But the thing about it is when you have talent that works hard like TCU has, it's quite a mismatch. And that's what I see coming this Saturday. Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, yeah, you got a team that's not as talented and they're fighting injuries too. That's a really bad combination. One more thing I want to say about this. This might have been a game that I was more worried about before, but now these young guys on defense for TCU and just the young freshmen in general, they've been in Minnesota. That was actually a really loud environment. Minnesota had
that's the biggest game in Minnesota history.
Yeah, and there was a lot of excitement going into that game for Minnesota. They expected to win that game. Now they've been on the road to Texas Tech, so now they've been in these environments where Texas Tech is as brutal as it's going to get for a young TCU player because they hate TCU, and so there's a lot of venom being spewed from the stands on that. So they take that experience and they're going to grow from it. And I don't think that they're going to miss a beat in Kansas State. That crowd can be loud all they want. They don't hate TCU like Texas Tech. It's a different type of crowd. So I think TCU will be just fine, and I think they come out with the win fairly easily.
They did play Oklahoma State tough on the road last week, and they had a chance to win that game. And that would have been a quality win for them in Stillwater. But just kind of give you a perspective of what you're seeing from their defense. Oklahoma State only had 49 rushing yards. Pretty good. But they had 441 passing yards. You had Mason Rudolph completing 34 passes. And, Boykin's got to kind of be rubbing his
chops.
He's licking his chops ready to go up there and fling the ball around. You got to think Meacham and Cumbie are doing the same thing. And I know for all you run the football guys, if Kansas State's going to give up that kind of yardage through the air, you don't need to be running the football probably till the fourth quarter like they have been, or like they did against Texas this past week. But it should be an exciting game. Coach P gets to go back home, going back to his alma mater. I don't think it has as much shine on it as it did a couple years ago just because he's been there, done that now.
Right.
But, it should be exciting nonetheless.
Well, he'd like to win there. I mean,
yeah,
he's been there, but now he'd like to win there. So that'd be good for him.
Well, let's talk about the rest of the Big 12. Let's recap what they did last week. I'm ahead on you on the predictions. You thought West Virginia was going to beat Oklahoma.
I did, and I was very wrong. Oklahoma looked impressive.
Oklahoma's going to, I don't want to say creep up on some guys, but they're doing what people expected. Baker Mayfield is a lot better than Trevor Knight. Their defense is playing better. I thought West Virginia's defense was pretty good, but Oklahoma scored 44 on them, and West Virginia's now only going to get hurt even worse now that Carl Joseph is out. But I was probably, along with TCU's win over Texas, I was probably the most impressed with OU's win over West Virginia, because that's a quality opponent. I know people say, well, Oklahoma gave up 38 to Tulsa. For them to go out and score 44 on West Virginia, that was impressive.
We all know what kind of defense West Virginia has, and they were. Carl Joseph had one of the bigger hits you've seen this year on a sideline on one of the OU receivers, but
he does that every week.
He
man.
does.
He did.
Here's what I'm seeing.
BJ Catalon will tell you.
Skylar Howard is not impressing me, and I think that's really going to hurt them. And it looked like in the big road environment, he wasn't near as effective as West Virginia needed him to be. He looked rattled, and they really needed him to step up big, and they didn't get as good of a game from him as they needed. But Oklahoma was very impressive, and I think the more they keep winning, the more confidence they're going to build. They're always going to have as much talent as any team in the conference, if not more. I mean, they recruit top 10 level classes every year, so it's. The last two games of the season for TCU, last couple of games of the season, are going to be a lot of fun. That's all I can say.
That's going to be a scary game going up to Norman, though. If they keep continuing to play at the rate they're playing at right now, obviously Baylor's going to be a tough game for them. But if you look at the Big 12 just in general, there is just it's plain and simple: Baylor, TCU, and Oklahoma.
That's it.
And then everyone else.
That's it.
Everyone else is in a dogfight to see. You're probably going to see. The conference champion with an undefeated record. Second place will have one loss. Third place will have two losses. Then everyone else is going to be, 4-5 or 5-4. I don't think you see any 6-3
Which
teams.
I think that's good for the conference, because if you have three teams with no less or no more than two losses, that looks good for your conference. And the Big 12 is actually challenging this year as one of the better top-heavy, conferences. Right. TCU needed, not just TCU, but the Big 12 needed OU to be good again. They needed another team to join Baylor and TCU as an upper echelon team, because when you start talking about respect nationwide from voters and from all the panels and this and that, you want to have a strong conference. And the perception right now is that Oklahoma State's a top 25 team. I think you're going to see that they're not really what they seem to be right now.
When they get to the meat and bones.
Right. I think they're going to lose 3 or 4 games at least. But I think Oklahoma's legit. Obviously, Baylor and TCU are legit. And if you've got 3 teams like that at the top, that's a pretty solid conference.
Let's talk about 2 teams at the bottom: Kansas and Iowa State. Iowa State wins that game 38-13. I mean, we called it. I mean, Kansas may not win a game this year. Iowa State, that might be their only win of the year, or in the Big 12 anyway. But Kansas is in a bad place. Bad place.
They are, and you didn't think they could go any lower, but they just look terrible. And Iowa State, to put up 38 and only give up 13, that's a good win for them. They're going to take any win they can get. I remember seeing the spread and thinking, when it first opened up being 17, I think it closed at 20, and they still covered. And I was a little surprised, but Iowa State showed us again just how bad Kansas is. So, yeah, if TCU has a game with Kansas this year anywhere as close as they did last year, you have a major issue.
Yeah,
there was a lot of things that went into that game last year, but this is a different Kansas. This is a different kind of bad Kansas team. So, I don't really want to talk about that.
I will say, now that you brought up that game from last year, I will say that the weather in Kansas and the weather expected next weekend for Iowa State is the best time to go up there and play football. We don't have to worry about sleet, ice, snow, any weather forecast that can dampen the game for TCU's offense or their ability to play defense. But I'm glad for the weather because it makes for a safe trip back to Texas. But That is one thing. If you're leaving the state and having to go to Kansas State and Iowa State, at least you don't have to do it late in the year.
Yeah,
and
get
of course,
it out of the way early.
yeah, you don't have to go up to West Virginia and play in another cold climate. So yeah, get it out of the way, and it's going to be two beautiful weekends of football. Texas Tech and Baylor, 63-35. Baylor had this one from start to finish.
They did, and honestly, Texas Tech was really never in it. I mean, I think it was 35-21 at one point, maybe, but Baylor, they were running circles around them. I'll tell you what I'm impressed with about Baylor is their running game this year is unreal.
Number 2 in the country.
Number 2 in the country, averaging over 300 yards per game. Shock Linwood, he just looks like a monster running the ball. I mean, obviously they've played Tech, they've played SMU, they've played Lamar. But at some point, you got to say, okay, yeah, they've played these teams, but they're still putting up some unreal numbers. We'll see how it slows down once they play a couple of other teams, but you have to be impressed with what Baylor is
Here's
doing.
kind of my philosophy on that, too, is you got to play the teams that are on your schedule. And they're going out and doing exactly what people expect them to do. Sure, they struggled against SMU early through the third quarter, but they ended up winning that game pretty handily. They struggled against Lamar a little bit, but they ended up winning that game pretty handily. They didn't struggle against Rice at all, and they really didn't struggle against Texas Tech at all. They're doing it what people expect of them, and they're really not being talked about a whole lot because, like you said, they haven't had a marquee matchup. It's not going to be till West Virginia comes to town next weekend that I think people will actually start giving them some respect as far as being a team that should earn that respect of being one of the top teams. I personally think they should be in the top 3. I mean, top 3 or 4, which I think they are.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people probably wouldn't agree just because of their schedule, but I think if Baylor played Ohio State right now, they'd beat them.
Well,
I think if Baylor played Michigan State right now, they'd beat them. Same thing could be said for TCU. I think they could beat both those teams. And that's what I don't like about some of these polls because I was kind of surprised that after TCU's win, it's like, people understand Texas is bad. But Texas still has that marquee name next to them. It's 50-7 over Texas. It's not 50-7 over Kansas. So voters respected that win, brought TCU back up to number 2. But I get, you got to stay number 1 until you lose. I can understand that argument. But Ohio State has struggled against Northern Illinois. They struggled against Indiana. Michigan State deservedly moved down a couple spots after barely squeaking out against the worst team in college football.
If they didn't drop after playing like that against Purdue, I was going to be shocked. But yeah, Ohio State hasn't played good in 4 weeks. I mean, in 4 weeks they haven't played good. One thing I want to say, one more thing about Baylor, and looking at this year's version of Baylor against last year's version of Baylor, I think that their defense is worse and their offense is better. I think they got a better offense than they had last year, even with Petty there. Yeah. And I think they've got a worse defense. And that's – what does that say about them? I think they're just as able to be knocked off by TCU or, any team that has an offense like that. Well, there's not only a couple teams in college football.
The receivers are ridiculous. And
there's no doubt.
For anyone that thinks that Baylor's just going out there and throwing the football all over the place and, just not – I mean, they're running the football, but they only threw the ball 24 times against Texas Tech. They didn't run actually a whole lot of plays against them, but they were still able to,
they just
get 680 yards, but they gave up 636 to Texas Tech. Mahomes actually had a pretty good game, threw a couple interceptions, but I don't want to look ahead again, but I keep looking ahead. I keep doing it to myself. I keep thinking the TCU Baylor game is going to be a 70-63 top ball game or a 63-60 top ball game like we saw last year, but I keep getting ahead of myself. I need to go back and look at the Iowa State score in Kansas so I can just bring myself down to no offenses. But Iowa State, you got to watch out. That game's going to be at night, a couple weeks, and
you can't take anybody light.
Oklahoma State went in there to Ames and lost a few years ago when they were ranked number 2, but Oklahoma State 36-34 over Kansas State. We talked about that a little bit. Oklahoma State threw for 441 yards. Kansas State had that game, but Oklahoma State finds a way again to win a close game 2 weeks in a row.
Their luck's going to run out, in my opinion. But, that's why you play all the games on your schedule. You want to look at some games for next week, or what do you want to do next?
Yeah, let's look ahead. We're going to go around the Big 12 again, give our predictions. I think I could beat you again unless you want to agree with everything this week.
We'll see.
Oklahoma State, West Virginia. Can't even say West Virginia. Oklahoma State, West Virginia. West Virginia is at home. I'm going to go with Oklahoma. I'm going to go with West Virginia, even though they are losing Carl Joseph.
Are we going for the spread here? Or are we just going straight up?
Just straight up, man.
Yeah, I think West Virginia wins that one at home. I think Oklahoma will struggle on the road with their offense, and West Virginia is a much tougher place to play than Austin is because the fans are a lot more boisterous there. So give me West Virginia.
All right, next game on the list is Texas Tech, Iowa State. Texas Tech's at home. Give me the Red Raiders. I know they're coming off a tough loss to Baylor, but offensively they're going to get it rolling against Iowa State, and they're going to get a quality, or not a quality win, but at least a win in the Big 12.
I think they win big, and I think they beat them by more than 12, which is what the line is right now. But, yeah, I like Tech at home in that one.
You got to think playing TCU and Baylor the first couple of weeks is going to set them up pretty nicely against Iowa State.
It's done one of two things. It's either set them up nicely against everyone else, or it's beat the crap out of them. You know what I mean? So
probably somewhere in between.
Yeah, if they've got legs left after chasing those two offenses, then we'll see.
Oklahoma and Texas. Give me the Sooners.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see how any way you could pick Texas. This is always one of those games where no matter how bad one team is, they can always pull the upset. But I just
a lot of people thought Texas should win that game last year. I mean, they played well enough to win that game.
I just don't see any way this year. I think Oklahoma wins it handily.
Texas goes to 1-5.
1-5 Texas.
Okay, so let's just be hypothetical here. If Texas loses this game in a similar fashion that they lost to TCU, is Charlie Strong? Does he make it to the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to give him. This is just me talking. I think you have to give him this year. I think you have to give him this year, and I think you have to give him next year. Will the fans, will the fans go for that? I don't know, but hopefully, cooler heads prevail, and they give him a chance to build what he's trying to build there. But you see, after Oklahoma, they've got Kansas State and Iowa State. They should be able to win one of those two, if not both of those games. And then Kansas. So you got a 3-game stretch after Oklahoma where they could turn it around.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you see them 4-5. So it's possible, but if you fall to 1-5, how do you keep your players from all of them tweeting at halftime? I don't know.
But they could easily lose to Kansas State and lose to Iowa State, because what has anyone seen from Texas this year that makes you think they could beat anyone in this conference except Kansas?
Nothing. Nothing at all. But I just don't see those schools doing to Texas what some of these other schools are doing to them right now. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, 1-5, that's going to be a bad look for the Longhorns.
Speaking of Kansas, they got a tough one this week. They're at home. Don't know how much that's going to help because they got Baylor coming to town, and the over-under on this is 77. I imagine that they're thinking Baylor's going to score 70 and Kansas might score 7. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas is a 44-point dog. When was the last time you've had a conference matchup?
I'm taking Baylor on that.
Yeah, when was the last time you had a conference matchup with that big of a point spread? I don't know that I've seen it. But, yeah, barring 8 feet of snow in Kansas, I don't see any way that Baylor doesn't just light them up.
Shock Linwood or Corey Coleman or Katie Cannon don't make the trip.
Maybe they oversleep and miss the plane. That's the only chance Kansas has. But no, I mean, that's not even going to be a contest.
Well, we were saying that same thing last year at this time with TCU, and Kansas somehow pulled the rabbit out of the hat and almost tricked us all.
But you and I both know how different these two Kansas teams are.
Yeah.
That was a senior-laden team. That they weren't talented, but they played a lot of games together. And
that was the last home game.
That was like a home. Wasn't it homecoming? I can't remember, but
I think it was the last game. Okay. The last game for the seniors.
But
home game.
It was. That's right, and it was senior night. So there was a lot of emotion in that game for Kansas. No excuse. All that matters, TCU won the game, but I don't see that same kind of scenario playing out.
I'll be honest with you, man. The thing I remember most about that game is your flask of whiskey that you had out there on the field to keep warm.
Boy, I'm glad I had that with me. That's for sure. We're kidding, guys. I don't drink on the job.
At least he says he doesn't.
No, yeah.
Kansas State, TCU. Give me the Wildcats. I'm just kidding. Give me the Horned Frogs. I'm going to say about more than 9 points. I'm going to say TCU's going to go up there, get the job done on offense. Probably get out of town scoring about 40 to 50 points. Kansas State may score between 10, 17. But I see a good win for TCU, much like they were last year. more veteran leadership on offense is going to get the job done for them. I think the defense is playing with more confidence. I don't think you're going to see quite the talent that they've seen in the last few weeks. I think it's going to be another quality win for the Frogs.
Yeah, give me TCU. I think it's going to be like a 45-17, 45-21 type game. That 9-point spread is curious to me, but I don't see any way that Kansas State can keep it close, unless they get 4 or 5 turnovers, something like that. But yeah, I think TCU gets an easy win.
Coach Snyder is going to be running that clock like crazy. He's going to tell them to snap the ball with about 3 seconds left on the play clock. He's going to try to use the clock to his advantage.
The problem is TCU scores in a minute and a half on their drive. So.
Yeah, so you better be ready to play some defense.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk some other news that I don't know if people want to hear about, and that's some of the reactions from the recruits that were there last week for the Texas game. We talked to a few guys out there, and obviously TCU made another impression on some of those guys. And I do think the 2016 class is going to finish strong. 17's kind of gone quiet a little bit. I think we'll see that change after the season. I think you'll see some kids start to pull the trigger a little bit. But I do want to talk about the news that came down today. Cameron Williams was obviously going to make his decision today. He changed that. I posted on the board this morning when people were talking about the crystal balls and everything, and I said this will be contingent on what the coaches want to do.
And to be clear, I know exactly what you meant when you said that. There was some confusion on the board, I think. But
no, I'm not talking about – I wasn't talking about position. I was talking about taking the commitment, period.
If the coaches would take the commitment, exactly. And there's some things you can and can't say on a board. I hope you guys understand that sometimes. We can or can't say it beforehand, and then we can explain it after for reasons hopefully you understand. The kid hadn't made his decision yet. We don't want to say something that would jeopardize anything. So,
yeah.
But Jeremy was absolutely coming from the point of if TCU chose to take that commitment.
And we don't want to say that it's kind of a slippery slope to talk about because, when kids delay a decision, sometimes it does, not only with TCU, but most of the time it does have something to do with the team that he wants to commit to not ready to take that commitment. So it could, whether with Cameron's case, if it's grades, if it's, not knowing where they want to put him yet. Basically what I said about Cameron is he's a good kid. He's a very good athlete. He's one of those guys that could play offense, could play defense. I know at one point Coach Patterson loved his ability to play defense, but Cameron's been working hard to play receiver. He's a big-bodied kid. He's 6'3", 195. I know a lot of people would like to see his ability on the defensive side of the ball, but I've seen him play offense. He's very strong. He's not going to beat you with world-class speed or anything, but he'll be able to use his body, get open, shield smaller defensive backs. He's going to make someone a pretty lucky program wherever he does indeed end up going. I still feel good about TCU's chances with him, but I don't know how much they really want him at this point.
And that's hard to say because, you look at Cameron Williams, he's a versatile athlete. He's one of those guys you want to be one of the first ones off the bus. I mean, he's just super athletic. He's versatile. He can play multiple positions. But I think what this shows you is not just that you're running low on scholarship numbers right now, but you're also being very selective. You're the number 2 team in the country.
Yeah.
And the line to come play at TCU right now is a long one.
It's a very, very good position to be in.
Absolutely. They are in the catbird seat. They have so many recruits right now that are interested in them, and they're going to play their hand right no matter what. The last 4, 5, 7, how many ever it is that they end up taking, they're going to be all very good players. So TCU's in an enviable position right now. They know they have to take their time, be selective. Who knows? Cameron Williams could still be an option, but right now it's not working out for both parties.
So basically, we're telling you, stay patient. Stay patient. Don't get caught up in thinking TCU should go after every kid under the sun, and think that he's going to have a committable offer, because sometimes that's just not the case. We saw it with Christian Wallace early in the process, where it was one of those cases where they didn't really want to take him, and they saw some things that they didn't like, whether it be on the field or off the field. And, luckily for Christian, he kind of saw the light and decided to go elsewhere. But by the time people really started to see some of the things, they all kind of figured it out. And that's why he's going way up to Oregon State, because I think a lot of teams kind of fell off in their recruitment with him.
That's a real interesting recruitment if you just look at that. A kid with that kind of obvious talent from Texas not going anywhere in Texas, and there's a reason for it. He needed to get away from home. It's probably the best opportunity for him was to get up there in Pac-12 country. Maybe he can get a new, fresh start, and that'll be good for him up there.
A couple other guys we want to talk about. Denzel Okafor didn't make it. I know a lot of people were kind of hoping he did, especially after that win. Depending on who you ask, because E.J. Holland from our friends down at the Texas site had an article with Denzel, and Denzel was spoke pretty highly of what TCU did, and basically said he was disappointed with how Texas performed. But I got to tell you, I'm going to shoot you straight forward. If you had asked me in July where Denzel was going, I would have told you TCU 10 out of 10 times. The longer this takes, the more I see him leaning toward Texas. And I've got it from some pretty good people that they're kind of getting the feeling that Denzel may choose Texas just because it's Texas. Even if Charlie Strong and his entire coaching staff gets fired, the people I talk to feel that Denzel still likes Texas because it's Texas. And I know TCU fans do not want to hear that, but sometimes that's just the case. And
that's going to always be the case.
And TCU fans should not even badmouth the kid just because he's saying that, because I know obviously there's a lot of good things that could happen to him at TCU. And I'm not saying he's committing to Texas either. I'm just saying I personally don't feel as good as I did a couple months ago. And the fact that he's waiting longer to make his decision, I don't like TCU's chances. Now, a few weeks ago, months ago, whatever, I felt TCU was leading by a mile. And they may still be leading. But from what I was told, it's very, very slim.
Right.
I mean, very slim. And the fact that the people I'm talking to are telling me that even if Charlie Strong and his staff aren't there, that he would still look at them, it's pretty telling.
Sure. And look, if you've been around the recruiting game long enough, schools like Texas and, Oklahoma, I mean, no matter what they're doing on the field, there's always going to be kids that grew up watching these schools, and just the thought of playing for that school is something they can't pass up. I'm not saying that's the case with Denzel Okafor, but I am saying the chance that he ends up at Texas is a very good chance. I still think, I was reading that article by EJ, our Texas 247 writer, EJ Holland, if you guys didn't know. And, just it's interesting to see which quotes player gives different writers from different sites. He actually gave EJ a little more than he's given me the last couple of times I've talked to him. So, and in the past, I could talk to Denzel anytime, and he's just not quite as quick to respond. You can read so much into all of this, and none of it honestly matters at the end of the day. It's going to come down to where he feels the most comfortable.
Right.
He still doesn't know because, like he said again today, he wants to take both visits and see how he feels after those visits. And even then, he doesn't have a time frame. And I believe him.
He's torn.
He is torn. And I do believe that TCU has every bit as a good of a chance as Texas does. So the guys on the site that are saying, hey, I'm tired of Denzel, let's move on. Denzel's a talent. You want guys like that in the trenches. So be patient and understand maybe that the level that TCU's recruiting on right now, there's going to be a lot more of these types of battles where they'll go all the way to signing day with teams like Texas, with LSU, with Oklahoma, and you're going to win some and you're going to lose some. But this is the game that TCU's playing now. They're recruiting at that level that you can't just give up on a guy. You can't just stop recruiting him.
When they recruit, high caliber guys that want to wait the process out a little bit, I mean, you just got to stay with them. You got to stay on them, and obviously, for him to still want to take the official visits, the longer he doesn't think about TCU, I think hurts the Frogs' chances. I can't say it enough. I really thought the guy was going to pull the trigger before the season started. I mean, he
was
I
close.
interviewed him face to face, and he told me I'm making my decision. And when I talked to him at that point, I would ask him about Texas, and he would come back with a TCU answer. So TCU is fresh on his mind. I think if he was going to TCU, he probably would have already done it. There's something about Texas that's just mesmerizing him right now. I don't know what it is. The playing time, which he would get the same kind of playing time at TCU. Obviously, you got to look at the direction of both programs. Yes, you do have a lot of young players at Texas that are making an impact, but you also have a lot of young players at TCU making an impact. It's going to go down to the wire. If you ask me today, where's Denzel going to be? I couldn't give you an honest answer. I don't know.
He doesn't know. And then that's
when
what
he doesn't know, then we don't know.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. He just doesn't know right now. So,
well, I will tell you this. If they do lose out on Okafor, they are going after Byron Nelson's Kellen Diesch, who recently decommitted from Arkansas. He's back on the Frogs' radar. They're making a push for him. Haven't mentioned that on the board yet. I probably will now that I've said it out here. But they did lock him early in the process. Obviously, they offered. He was at the spring game. Kellen's not real big on doing interviews. Even when you talk to him in person, he's kind of a humble kid. He doesn't like to talk about himself in that light. So it's going to be tough to really get his thoughts on it. But if you look at kind of where he was leaning before committing to Arkansas, I think Baylor's going to be a player. Texas A&M is going to be a player. But the fact that he came over to TCU and at least made the spring game and had that communication with the coaching staff is a plus. And another big plus for TCU right now is Coach Luper's the one recruiting him. And so anytime you have that guy recruiting a player, you got to feel good about TCU's chances.
This is something else I want to say. A lot of these recruiting battles, they are going to go all the way to signing day or a couple of days within signing day. But, if you've been watching TCU recruit for a while now, you understand that they've got a group of guys that they're ready to offer at a moment's notice that would jump on board right away and that are going to be very good players. So just know, it's hard to accept maybe sometimes, but just know, if they don't get Denzel Okafor, they're going to get somebody that ends up being equally as talented on the field, regardless of his ranking, they have guys that they've
got the skins on the wall to prove it.
They know who they want.
Simple.
You look at just a couple of guys that are on their team right now that are starting at safety and linebacker. Denzel Johnson, Traven Howard, late additions that nobody else really wanted. Derek Kindred, exactly.
ECSA.
I mean, they know where the talent is. Absolutely, I'm not worried about them closing out this class with talent, whether they get Denzel Okafor or not.
Cameron Lewis is another guy that I spoke with. I think it's gonna be interesting. That's all I'm going to say about that. It's going to be interesting. Loved his visit. Loves the coaching staff. Loves the camaraderie that the 2016 class is already forming. Loves the players. He's been down to TCU a couple times. Rusty Burns is on the job. Burnsy does a great job recruiting those kids out of Louisiana, especially out of Monroe, the Monroe area. I crystal balled Cameron Lewis to TCU. I think it's going to happen. I don't know when. I wish I could tell everyone, but I don't know. But I think it's going to happen.
I saw questions on the board, people asking where's TCU looking at him. That's got to be safety.
Oh, yeah, he's safety all the way.
So, I mean, he's a big athletic safety. He's forgive me for saying this, guys. He's an SEC-looking safety, if that means anything. He's a big, physical, athletic kid that'll hit you in the mouth, and it's typical to what TCU looks for in their big safeties. Guys like T.J. Johnson, Kenny Alok, list goes on and on. Big physical guys, and he fits that mold. Sam Carter. So another good-looking athlete to keep an eye on.
Baron Browning, spoke with him last night. Not a man of many words right now. It's kind of like, when you see a deer, you don't want to approach them too fast because they're kind of skittish. You don't know how many questions they're going to answer.
He's very guarded in what he's saying right now.
Yeah, he's been very well coached in that matter. But it is pretty telling. That's the second TCU game he's been to this year
in a row.
And the fact that Baylor was playing in Arlington, was the home team, was allowed to host recruits, and he didn't show up to that game. Now, I don't know if Barron had previous plans at night where he couldn't get over there and watch any of that game, but it is pretty telling that he was over there at TCU for the second week in a row to watch the Horned Frogs and keep telling everyone it's not over. I mean, Barron has gone on record and saying it's not over. I'm not going to say he's going to decommit from Baylor and commit to TCU or anything like that, but I will say TCU is very much in it. We saw him, or you didn't get to see him, but from my point of view, on the home side, when he first walked out, I mean, the TCU coaches were showing him love. I mean, he looked like he was having a genuinely good time getting a chance to talk to those guys, and he's comfortable up there. He's very comfortable around those coaches. Obviously, not being too far from home, he's getting a better relationship with the players there, and this one's gonna go down to the wire. I think he's gonna look out and try to figure out what is best for him. I think when he committed to Baylor that he had hopes of maybe one of his good buddies joining the fold with him and kind of had a little bit of influence on his decision. But, obviously, too, Baylor is a good program. Phil Bennett's a good coach on defense. Players like playing for him. It was easy to see why he chose Baylor, but, again, it's a long way till 2017 signing day, and TCU, I'm going to say it very clearly, is very, very much in this battle.
Well, and you couldn't have picked a better game for him to show up to see that defense start to gel. He even mentioned talking to you how they were swarming to the ball.
Yeah.
Recruits take notice of that, and I'm not talking bad about the team down in Waco, but you just don't see that.
Yes, you are.
You don't see that level and style of defense from that team ever, and you haven't. You haven't since Brawls has been there. You haven't since before he was there. That is the hallmark of Gary Patterson's team. Yes, they're young. Yes, they're banged up, but they still are well coached. Yes, they're missing tackles right now. They're well coached. They know where to be. All those things with experience, they're going to get better and better as the year goes on, and a smart recruit will notice that.
Yeah, very much so. Well, it's been an exciting last few days for everyone. It's going to be another exciting weekend as TCU travels up to Kansas State, takes on the Wildcats. I think it's going to be another good weekend for the Frogs. But that's it for our show tonight. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Talked plenty tonight. We rattled on about pretty much everything. But until next time, I'm Jeremy Clark for Jeremiah Glenn. Talk to you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.